Good afternoon. Welcome to another Goalline webinar. It's been a little while since we've done one of these regular webinars. Today's topic is on scheduling games and practices. A little bit of housekeeping. There's no audio options throughout the webinar, but if there are any questions, there's a chat available. You could throw your questions in the chat. As always, Goalline does have a dedicated support team that can be reached by phone or live chat or by email, goallinesupport@stacksports.com to email in. You can go to the goalline.ca homepage and click on support to get access to live chat and how to submit a support case. Live chat and phone is available Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. As I mentioned, today's topic is on scheduling. So I am going to walk through a couple of things to just review, make sure that your leagues have teams in them, that your teams have a season and schedule, and that we're ready to start adding games or practices or both. And we're going to look at 3 different ways to get a schedule created. One is going to be through a schedule upload. We'll briefly look at the file requirements, and then we'll go through that upload process. Another method is to use the built-in schedule generator. This works for league style standings schedules. So it does not work for association teams where you have a schedule provided to you by your league. And it doesn't work for playoff schedules, but it does work for practices and regular season or standings style schedules, such as regular season or round robin. And then we'll, of course, look at how do you add games or delete games, edit games and practices and whatnot manually. So we'll hop in and take a look. As always, regardless of what type of site you have, I'm using my gold layout Northeast Athletic Officials Association demo site here today. When I log in, I'm brought to that Goalline master menu. I am seeing the master menu here. And because I am logged in as a main contact or a Goalline admin, I see the option here to look at all of the leagues as well as all of the association teams that exist on the site. When you talk about scheduling, it is important to understand the difference between a league and a league team or an association team. Association teams in the Goalline platform are essentially rep teams, travel teams, teams where you are the one scheduling their practices, you are the one building that team, but there is a separate entity that provides a league schedule that you would just want to have displayed on your site. If your league provides you your schedule in a spreadsheet or in something that can easily convert to a spreadsheet, you're able to go ahead and upload that schedule easily for any and all of your teams at one time. If that league as a separate entity is also using a Goalline website for the scheduling, we can actually provide some tie-in tools that would allow you to have your team tied directly to the team on the league site, in which case you don't have to update your system with any of the games for those teams. You would just be updating their practices and using the Goalline system for your communication and practice attendance and things like that. So we're going to take a quick look and make sure that we have our settings correctly here. So that main difference there with your association teams being treated as travel teams versus your leagues. Important to understand what we assume is that if you have in managed leagues, you've created a bunch of different divisions. What's expected is that you are the one who is managing and maintaining that entire regular season schedule through to the end of the season. You're also the one responsible for maintaining the standings and whatever statistics are going to come from that. If that's not the case, then what you should probably have are rep teams. And your rep teams can be set up to play against each other as well as the outside associations. So if you're creating a division, just because you have more than one team that plays in one of those external leagues managed elsewhere, you don't actually have to create a league for that. You would create them as association teams. You'd simply just let the system know that they play against each other. The first thing I want to check on with my leagues and teams is, do they have their active season and an active schedule? So I'm going to scroll down to the schedule settings section, and I'm going to click on manage seasons first. This is where I'm just going to go to make sure that all of my leagues and teams here have an active season. The active season is 2022-23 for all of my divisions, which is great. And then as I look over to the side, I can see what that date range is. So this 2022-23 season is going all the way until July 31st, 2023. And then it looks like on August 1st, we're going to start our 23-24 season, and so on. You can see the history of all the different seasons that I've had. One of the things I love about using a consistent date range across your seasons as you move through time is that it makes it real easy for someone else to come in and say, what should I probably pick for my season? They can look at that history and say that it's probably the best to do August 1 to July 31. So I scroll down and just make sure that everybody's got their season and schedule or season set up over here. This does give me an indication that there are schedules, so we're probably good for all of these. But if you did create a new division, even partway through the season, or a new rep team that doesn't play other teams within your association, then you want to come back into this Manage Seasons tool and make sure that you add a season for them. You'll notice that you have a check all button as well as the ability to check just an individual. If you find that some of these have either none for an active season or the active season is out of date, you can select just the ones that need to be updated. As I look through my list, I can see that difference between the leagues that I manage all the way through from regular season through to the end. And then I can see that these ones here are my association teams. So within these association teams, I can see what team belongs to that. So the Goalline system is going to provide a league name behind the scenes. You can adjust that to be whatever you need it to be. But generally speaking, it will take that age, skill, and gender provided at the time of creating the team and created a league name for it. Notice how in my boys 15 tier 1, there's actually more than one team. And that's how the system knows that there could be games played against each other, as well as some of the visitor teams that we'll have set up here. So this tells me that everything is good with my season. The next thing I want to do is go to manage schedules. So I'm going to go back out to my schedule settings section. I'm going to click on manage schedules. Over here, I see the same list of divisions and association teams, but I'm seeing the schedules that exist. So over here, we can see I have a regular season schedule as well as a playoff schedule in almost all my divisions. There may be other types of schedules that you'd like to add as well. Association teams will sometimes like to add a schedule for tournaments so that the team is able to add games that belong to their tournaments without them being part of the regular schedule. They all show up on the same calendar. If I'm subscribed to that calendar as a parent, I am still going to see all of those games. It's just that the schedule itself is going to be different when it comes to how you're grouping your statistics reporting, or if you are a league, how you manage your standings. So separate schedules would be separate standings. If you do have a regular season or a round robin that pushes into a playoff style schedule for elimination, you do need to have at least two schedules, one being that regular season or round robin, if that's more appropriate, and then the playoffs, or whatever you want to call that. Some folks will call it finals or championships, whatever it is that you want to call that. When you go to create your schedule, you are going to notice that you can choose between standings and playoff brackets. And just keep in mind that only leagues are even going to have this option to select that playoff bracket style schedule. So if you don't see this option, don't be alarmed. It just means that you don't have leagues and you strictly have association teams. So this is how I'm able to check and make sure that I do have a schedule for everybody. If I do want to add one of those extra schedules, such as the tournament style schedule, or maybe an exhibition schedule for games that don't have to count against any other set of standings or statistics, you can add that in here by just typing in exhibition, setting that to be a standing style schedule if necessary, and then checking all or checking off the divisions and teams that would like to have that schedule. You'll notice that you can set up some of those schedule details here as well. Things like, is it active? Is it published? You do have to have at least one schedule that's active. I always recommend that that be your regular season schedule. Your regular season schedule is typically the one you'll use first. Obviously, there are certain exceptions if you start with a tiering round or a balancing schedule, or if you have a preseason schedule. Whatever makes sense to you, you create that schedule with whatever name is appropriate, and whichever one is the beginning schedule for your season to kick off, that's the one that you want to have set as active. Any other schedule that you go to create after that, you would set it to not be active. And the great thing is, as you roll through those schedules, if you do have a playoff schedule that's going to be dependent on your regular season schedule, the playoff schedule automatically makes itself active as soon as all those regular season games have been reported. So now that we've taken a quick look and made sure that we have an active season and we have schedules to put these games on, let's take a look at the various ways that you can add schedule. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna lie. I lied. I'm gonna hop into one more quick look. I'm gonna open up one of my league control panels, and I'm gonna go into the one I always use as a demonstration is my Women's Hurricane Inlet League. I want to hop in here because I want to make sure that all of the teams we're using this season are here. And there's lots of different ways that you can manage your teams throughout the seasons. If the leagues that you have the same teams in them year over year over year, and you don't do new team registrations each year, then the teams are just going to stay as they are. As I scroll down, I can edit the schedule details of the schedules that I'm going to be using, and I can deselect teams that might not be participating this year. So as I scroll down through all the details here, I can then see that I have all of these teams listed. They're all checked off as playing in this particular schedule. But if we get word that the blue team here is not going to be playing this year, I can deselect them from here. You are able to delete teams. The history of that deleted team will remain in the seasons in which it was part of on the public side of your site, where all of your standings and statistics are going to be archived. So you don't lose that history. You would just lose them from the current season. So removing them using the checkboxes here just simply removes them from the list of active teams. And if you go to use the schedule upload feature, you won't have those teams available to match to. So you want to do a quick check to make sure that all of the teams you need are available in your schedule. So that's the league view of that. Very similarly, I'm just going to click the Goalline logo here to get back to my master menu. Similarly, your rep teams have teams that they play against. And again, those typically don't change from year to year. So I'm just going to hop in and select one of these teams. So Velutini's new team. When I hop in here, I'm going to see an option in the team admin section called Add, Edit, Delete Teams. And this is where I go to add the opposing teams. So these are teams that don't belong to me. I don't have their roster. I don't care about their standings. I just care that I am able to schedule a game between my team and one of these teams. So here I already have several teams. If you don't have those teams in there, or there's a new team in your area, you can select that you want to add a team. So if we're going to add, let's see, I don't have a purple. So let's add a purple team here. And I don't have a gold. So let's add gold. And click enter. So that's just adding 2 more opposing teams that I'm going to be able to use when it comes to creating a game or uploading a schedule file. None of the opposing teams here have any consequence to me other than for the ability to schedule them. Another really important thing to note in here is that if Velutini's team here does play against any of the other teams that are in my list, I need to make sure that I do not place them on this list over here. The way that I created the team was to tell the system that these teams play together, and it already knows that they're going to share opposing teams. I do believe that I've set that up, so let's just go and demonstrate that. So add, edit, delete teams over here. This does look like a different division. So we've got another team, blue, other. I get very creative at times. So let's go and take a look at team 2 over here, because I do believe that they appear to also be sharing those details. And yeah, so we can see here that the same list of opposing teams is available for this team, as well as the one that was just our first team there. So no need to go and add the same details to multiple teams if they all play in the same division. Just making sure that you've got all your teams in there, the ones you play against, as well as the ones that play within your league. Obviously, you'll also want to make sure that all of your venues are in the system. And when I say venue, I mean all of the individual playing surfaces. You will find an add, edit, delete venues tool in the scheduling section. I think that's in the bodies area, or no, venues. Add, edit, delete venues, nice and easy. These can be imported as well if you have a list of them. So adding your venues in here, really important to add them in and make sure that you don't have any duplicates. And you'll notice too that the Goalline system does provide you with the ability to have your venues that you might use as a full venue or cross venue. So using soccer and hockey as example, you might have a full field soccer game for your U16s and U18s, but you might use a half field for your U12s or your U10s, and they use the same field. So making sure that you're using the feature to split that into smaller venues for the purpose of conflict checking helps to make sure that you're not going to end up with any scheduling conflicts. And regardless of the method you use to add the schedule to the system that we're going to go through here in this webinar, it's always going to go through this really robust conflict checking. So this venue here splits into two halves, and they're called half A and half B. As I hover over, it's showing the parts that will be in conflict. So if we did go into further splits, like let's say we get all the way down into quarters or we get into sixths and that sort of thing, some large surfaces might be able to get down to six. It just shows you that if I schedule something here, everything that turns red is going to be recognized as a scheduling conflict. If I have anything scheduled at this full venue, I'm not going to be able to schedule anything at either one of the half venues. So it's great to have them in your list. It's even better to have them set up properly as child venues, and you would see that through the indentation here. Just make sure that your conflict checking is going to be that much more robust, and there won't be any scheduling conflicts with two sets of teams showing up to the same venue expecting to play their game. So now we'll look at how we actually upload a schedule file. You can do this from 3 separate menus. You can do this from the master menu where we are now. You can also do it directly from your league menu, or you can do this directly from a team menu. The difference is always going to be that I can upload a schedule for anyone in the entire Goalline system from the master menu. As soon as I get into a league, I can only upload a schedule that includes games and practices for teams in that league. And then if I go down to a team level, I can only upload a schedule file that includes games or practices for this one specific team. So depending on how you prepare your schedules, if you do it in a spreadsheet and you just have one large spreadsheet for the association, you can do that from the master menu and upload them all at the same time. If you do it by division or by team, they can be uploaded either from the master menu or from those individual levels. Uploading a schedule file is a specific permission. So when you go to grant someone website admin access to the site, if they're managing a division or if they're managing a team, if they're responsible for adding the schedule, you may want to provide them the permission to upload a schedule file and the ability, of course, to edit or delete games and practices. When you click upload schedule file, you are going to find there's some instructions on the screen for you, and there's also some sample templates. The difference in the template is only the date format. My preference, and CSV files in general have a preference for the year, month, day format for dates. Being Canadian, I'm a big fan of that one also because I tend to get a little confused with the month, day, or day, month. So whichever template works best for you, you can download that as a starting point. You don't have to use these sample templates at all. You can create your spreadsheet from whatever format you have, as long as it started as a spreadsheet and it's simple that you can save it as a CSV formatted file, which you can do with most spreadsheet programs, Google Sheets, Excel, Apple version of Excel, etc. So when you look at your sample spreadsheet, you're going to find that there's a bunch of fields. Some of these are going to be absolutely required and some of them are not so required. So let's take a quick peek. The home team column is going to be required. If you are uploading practices, this row down here, I'm going to make this a little larger to make sure that we can all see it really well. Sorry, I can't do that. I'm sure there's a zoom in here somewhere. There we go. Let's go to, all right. That's probably a little much. Okay, I've got a practice in here for for girls U18. There's no visiting team, but there is everything else. We've got our date, we've got our time, we've got our duration, we've got the division, and we've got the type of practice, because you can share practice time. It could be shared, half, or full venue. Shared practice times are able to have as many teams as you want scheduled at that same exact time and venue. Half field or venue practices can only have 2 teams scheduled at that same time, and then a full venue will only allow 1 team to be scheduled. As we scroll over, we can see the name of the schedule, which in this particular case, we're calling practice, and then what that venue is. In this case here, we see CHP S1. When I look at this in my file, I know what all of these acronyms mean. Make sure that you know what these acronyms mean if your system says something a little bit different. And we are going to come across that a little bit as we go. I'm going to get rid of the word shared here in the practice types because these are not shared practices. They're just regular season games. So I've put the schedule name in here as regular. So venue is obviously going to be very required. The schedule name is also required. The league name is only required if you're doing this from the master menu. If you get into the league or team specific menu, the league name can be in your file and it's just going to be disregarded. The details and show details is exactly what it sounds like. These are details that you can add that go into the details section of a game or practice, and they can be shown on the public version of the schedule with just a yes or no. In here, it can be a Y. You can type yes, you can type no, or N, and it will recognize that as your selection. So if you have details that need to be included, sometimes if it's an exhibition game, there might be something special to note. There could be different reasons to put notes and details in your games and practices. So that's an optional field. You don't need to have these at all in your file. If you started a schedule by yourself without using the sample, you don't have to include those columns. The duration is also one that you can do a little bit differently. So here we've got duration in minutes, and it's just using the default value of 60 minutes. Pretty typical of a hockey schedule. Soccer schedules would probably have more like 90 minutes or 75 or 105 minutes, depending on the age groups and whatnot. So this is the duration from the start time provided. So this game goes from 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. If your schedule is already done in a format that has an end time instead of a duration in minutes, no problem. You can just use that instead, as long as there's either a end time or a duration column in the file to recognize what that is going to be. Your schedule does have a default for the duration of every game that you add, but you are able to override that. So if the default is normally 60, but this particular game is going to be a 75-minute game for some reason, you can enter that duration in minutes to be slightly different when you're uploading the file. You'll have that opportunity on the manual entry as well. The start date and time is obviously important. The format that you use should match the format that's used in the column header, but we'll point out that you're going to be able to make some selections as you upload. One of the great things about Goalline's uploader is that it's super user-friendly and it doesn't have to be in this order at all. Your visitor team and home team, as I mentioned earlier, home team is required. Visitor team is only required if it's actually a game, and it is possible to enter TBA for either the visitor or the home team, as long as it's a league that you manage. An association team cannot have TBA as both teams. It would have to be the association team itself and then TBA for the opponent, and that could be home or away. So you can have an away game where you know you're away, but you don't know who you're playing. That's probably a very obscure scenario, because if you're having an away game, you probably know who you're playing. But just that ability to use TBA, and you do not have to create a team in the system called TBA. In fact, I recommend strongly that you don't do that. Using the Goalline system's built-in TBA functionality is going to help you get through conflict checking. If you create a team called TBA and you try to use that across your division and scheduling, you'll eventually end up with a scheduling conflict with that TBA team that technically doesn't even exist. So be cautious about that. So once you're satisfied with your file and that you've got all your games and practices in, I always recommend that once you've made any changes, that you do use the save as function and not simply the save function, even if it was already saved appropriately. This is just something that I find CSV files do tend to be a little bit picky when it comes to maintaining the format provided for some of the columns. So here I have my title, and then I have the format type. CSV comma delimited is going to be the most important part. You'll notice that I also have on mine UTF-8. UTF-8 is a fantastic encoding that if you have it available, I do encourage you to use that option. But if you only have a CSV comma delimited option that looks like this, that's no problem either. UTF-8 is particularly good at protecting the integrity of characters within the file because CSV files want to strip them of all of their formatting. If you have anything that might have a special character or an accent, think French accents in a venue name, for example, or a team name, UTF-8 encoding is going to make sure that that the integrity of those characters is maintained as you upload that file. So I'm going to click save here now that I'm using the save as function. It already exists. Yes, I do want to overwrite it. And that's all I need to do to prepare my file. Now I want to go ahead and upload that file. So when I didn't even browse my computer. I should probably pick a file, right? So I'm going to browse. We'll browse my computer. We'll find that file. There we go. So there's my file and I'm going to upload it. I'm going to go through a little bit of a matching step here. So nothing has actually been uploaded here. All I'm looking at are the columns that exist in my file and a sample of the data. And then here are the columns that are available in Goalline for me to match these two. So I want to make sure that everything is matched appropriately and anything that I don't need is disregarded. So I'm going to go to Home Team and I'm going to click Home Team. Visitor Team, Visitor Team, Start Date, and here we want to be particularly careful about selecting the right format. It is going to automatically select the appropriate option from the column headers as long as it's an exact match. But if my file, for example, I might have selected this as the column header, but maybe I ended up using day, month, year, I want to make sure that I'm selecting the appropriate format for what's actually in the file. So you'll see a sampling of the data. Make sure that you select the date format that matches this. So we've got our year, month, day start date. We've got our start time, which is our start time, hours, minutes, AM, PM. You notice how you have a few other options here for start date and time, just depending on how you go ahead and create that file for yourself. The duration is going to be here. And again, if you used end time instead, you can select the end time option instead. The details and show details, if you have details to provide, you can match those columns. Otherwise, you can go down and select actually to just disregard. We'll scroll over. The league name must match up to league name here. And then practice type, either shared or full. Make sure that that's matched up over here. Schedule name, venue name, and that's the end of our matching. So now that I'm satisfied that all of my columns have been either matched or disregarded and all my required fields are there, now I have this question, am I importing the first highlighted row of my sample data? Usually you're going to say no to this because most of the time you're going to have a column header in the file. So home team, visitor team, this is not game information. This is just column headers. But if you are one of those people that don't use column headers and your first row in the file is in fact game or practice information, then you want to say yes to that. So we'll continue here. It's going to do a quick check just to make sure that everything seems okay before we proceed. So here's the full set of data that I provided. If there was an issue, for example, if I missed a required piece of information, or if the date format I selected did not match what was in the file, it would show me what we call red rows that did not, or that wouldn't pass the initial verify layer of the data. So you would click back and fix that up or adjust your file and start over. But as you notice here, we haven't really gotten too far. So I'm satisfied here. I'm going to continue, and then it's going to take me through the various matching steps. So the leagues uploaded in the file are these league names. Because none of them match the actual league names that I've used in the system, and it is case sensitive, I am going to select from the drop-down list. So I'm going to look for girls U18 here and see where that's going to be located. So GU18 is going to be, we'll look for this one here because that's the closest match. And then men's is actually my men's Harbor League. My women is my Women's Hurricane Inlet League. And this women, because it's spelled with a capital instead of all lowercase, it's going to match to the same thing. So I'm going to make sure that I have everything matched. If I used the exact names that are used in the system, I would have this automatically match for me. And hopefully we'll see a little bit of that on the next step. So the next thing I'm going to match after I've matched the leagues to tell the system what league are we starting with so that we know what teams to slot in. The men's Harbor League teams are, and notice how these ones did automatically match for us because they're in the file exactly as they are in the system, including where I put them in slightly differently with the capital versus no capital over there. So here we have our automatically matched. Our girls U18 did not automatically match. So we're going to go and make sure that we've got that. So we'll pick the Bulls. In my women's league, most of them did match, but Cadbury and Dairy did not. And that's because Cadbury is not actually Cadbury. They're the Cadbury Cadets. And my Dairy team is not actually just called Dairy. They are the Dairy Milk Destroyers. And so using those nicknames for the teams, I'm still able to upload the schedule file. I just need to match whatever didn't match up automatically with that manual dropdown. Next, we're going to move on to those schedule names. So I've got a regular practice. That's a regular schedule, a practice schedule, and again, a regular practice, or I keep saying practice schedule. So we'll continue there. And now we're going to move on, I think, to the venues and the venues. So here we have an example where I have used nicknames in my file, but in my system, I have the names written out in full. This is going to be really common, especially because if someone else is going to give you a schedule, they might have that venue name slightly differently. The examples I use a lot because I'm from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. I often use the Cole Harbour Place as my example. So CHP to me means Cole Harbour Place, and in there are two rinks called Scotia 1 and Scotia 2. So you're going to see a lot of different schedules that might have CHP and then written out Scotia 1. You might see 1 as a Roman numeral. You might see Scotia 2 with Roman numerals. And so this is just going to make sure that no matter what we have in the file, I'm able to match it to that one venue in my system so that there's not going to be any conflicts. So I'll look for Cole Harbour Place, Scotia 1, Cole Harbour Place, Scotia 2. Same thing here with the RBC Center Rink 1. There's 3 different ways that I have Rink 1 in here. So let's go and find RBC Center. If I could... I don't think I even have it in here. So I'm just going to pretend that I had that in here, and I'm going to call it my ATT Stadium number 1. And we're going to match it all up the same because this is the same rink. I'm referring to the same ice surface all 3 times here, whereas I'm referring to 2 different ice surfaces over here. So we'll continue having done that match. Again, if you use the exact same method of writing that venue into your file as you do in the system, it will do that for you automatically. So we'll say full here and full here for the practice types. So that'd be my ability to match up that half or shared practice if I was using those. So we'll continue. All the matching steps are complete. And now if I hit continue, now it's actually committing that to our live schedules. And it's going to come up with, because we've verified the data, but at this point, it hasn't actually done any conflict checking. But now as I'm uploading the file, it is updating everything, and it is going to provide me with the conflict check that we're looking at here. So it was done. I had 15 records in my file. None of them were duplicates, but 7 were inserted. They didn't have, in the season date range. So that's interesting. So when you have your schedule has a date range, and that's to make sure that you don't schedule, for example, a regular season game when the playoffs have already begun or vice versa. So these are games that have no issues. However, the date selected is after the end date of the schedule that I need. So 8 records were not inserted, and I can download, let me see here. Or no, because they weren't conflicts, I'm not able to download that. So, but if there were if there was a conflict, it would show me who it's in conflict with and provide me with an export so that I can make the appropriate corrections. So in this case, these games are just out of date range. I did check on the season date range that I had in place, but I didn't actually check on my my women's league and the schedule date range. So interesting there. So the schedule file did upload, but I didn't get any of my women's games in there because the schedule must end before the beginning of April. In order to solve that, I can go over and I can go into that women's league and I can take a look at that schedule again. So if I edit the schedule details here, we'll take a look and see what that date range is. Yeah, actually, so my schedule only goes until the end of January, so that's no good. Let's go and make that go until the end of July. Just to my system is a demo site, so I can go ahead and make that change. But if that date range is in your system, there's probably a good reason for it. So you want to make sure that you're being careful there. So now that I've adjusted that schedule date range, I would be able to go ahead and upload the that schedule. I could technically upload the same file again, and the ones that I already uploaded would be considered conflicts, whereas the ones that hadn't uploaded yet would not be in conflict, and they should be able to be uploaded. Rather than go through the upload again, we are going to hop into look at how do I generate a schedule file. So as I mentioned at the top, a schedule can be generated for a regular season, a standing style schedule can be generated for a division or a league that you manage the entire standings for. So we'll go, might as well use the women's league here. From your league menu, when you're looking at your schedules, notice how I have a regular season schedule here and I have a playoff schedule here. I have an option to generate a schedule next to my regular season details, but I don't have that same option when it comes to my playoff. And that's because we can only do this for standing style schedules. I'm going to click generate schedule from here, and it's going to show me the quick little wizard that lets me take a look here. So the first thing I do is look at the teams, make sure that all the teams that I want to schedule are checked off. If we're not going to use this team or this team anymore, I can take them out so they won't be considered when it comes to the schedule that we're going to generate. The schedule start and end date is going to default in here to whatever your schedule start and end date is. But if you do want the generator to only go so far, you can set it up so that it's only going to go so far into the future. Let's go ahead and bring it into 2023 as well on the start side, and we'll start. Let's go ahead and start tomorrow. Okay, so this is going to try to schedule games between March 8th and May 31st. And the games configuration here, it's going to try to schedule 10 games per team. They can only have 2 games per week. They can only have 1 game in a day, and they have to wait at least 1 hour between games. And we are not going to schedule double headers. 1 hour between games doesn't seem great to me. So I'm going to go ahead and make that either 23 hours or 1 day. I'm going to go ahead and use 20 hours because if I have a 9 o'clock game one night, I don't want to necessarily say you can't play if the time slot that's best is 6 o'clock the next day. So we're not going to say a full 24 hours, but we'll make it reasonable there. So the maximums are up to you. So it's a matter of how do you want the system to schedule it. Now, the maximum games per week and per day are also going to be very dependent on what time slots you actually provide for the schedule. There are ways for you to configure team practices with your generator as well. So if you wanted to use the schedule generator to generate practices for the teams in this league, you can do that. So I'm going to save my configuration here. And let's see, the other option I have available is to view the team options here. And what this does is it says, okay, what home team venue should we use when this team is the home team? If it doesn't matter, then I don't recommend making any selections here. The more criteria you add as far as preferences and blackout dates, the more restrictive the algorithm will become, and you may end up with a lot more manual changes that you'll want to do the drag and drop with that we'll get to shortly here. But you can put in those team options so that they have their preferred venue. Again, the preferred venue won't be taken into account if there are no time slots at that venue added. Blackout dates is your next step. Your next step is going to be that you can select a team to provide specific blackout dates or overall blackout dates just for everyone. If everyone is going to have the 29th off of May, all teams are going to be off then. Even if we normally have games on Mondays, we're not going to have one that day. That does tend to be a long weekend, so maybe we just don't want to have games on that day. You can set up specific team blackout dates if they've requested that and if that's part of your league rules. Next, we get to time slots. Here you're going to see a list of all of your venues, and this includes those portions of venues that are in there for conflict checking. And you're going to select the venue that you want to add time slots to, and you're going to add those time slots. So if I select Cole Harbour Place Scotia 1, we've already got 52 time slots in there. I'm not sure exactly where they are, but we can start adding time slots by just kind of clicking in here, and it's going to take me in a little closer. And I can set up that we want to do maybe Monday starting at 6 o'clock, going until 9 o'clock. Each slot is 60 minutes. So in this case, I'm going to have 3 time slots created on Monday. I can do this Monday and Wednesday if I need to, and I can have it end on that May 31st so that I can be adding all my time slots in here all at once. If the time slots that you use are spread across multiple venues, then you do want to make sure that you're doing this and iterating on that and making sure that all of the venues that you have time slots for that you want to be using are going to be available in here. So we've now got a bunch of time slots. If I scroll forward through the weeks, I'm going to see that Monday and Wednesday from now until the end of May are going to have time slots from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. Once you've got all your time slots in, then you go to the last step, which is to create the schedule. Creating the schedule, it'll show you all of the different requirements. So right now, I actually don't have enough time slots that have been made available to games in this division that fit my date range. So I'm going to go back to the time slots, and I need a little more, or a little less than 60 more. So I'm going to go and add them into Scotia 2. What I'm guessing is that my time slots that are in Scotia 2 are probably just in the past, maybe. So let's go ahead here and we'll do the same thing. What interesting fact as well, just because I am from Cole Harbour, might as well. So this one, instead of being 6 to 9, is going to be from 6 until 9:30 because Scotia 2 runs on the half hour instead of on the hour. Scotia 1 runs on the hour so that they can share a Zamboni. So we'll go ahead and add that in. We'll do Monday and Wednesday again. And we're going to save those changes. So now we've got more time slots, and we'll see, do I have enough to generate my schedule for this? Now I do. I have 138 slots available, and I only need 105. So that's perfect. What it is going to do is whenever there are more time slots than necessary for the schedule you're creating, it will always try to fill the earlier time slots. So the time slots that are left near the end of that scheduled date range that I've provided are the ones that are going to be left empty for the most part, depending on other settings with respect to the kind of conflicts that are going to be brought up, your maximum games per day, per week, etc. Those are all going to play into potentially having a time slot that might not be used throughout the scheduled date range, just based on the criteria not quite working out. I don't want to schedule practices, so I'm not going to check this box. But now I can view the chosen matchups. And this is going to show me here. You said you want 10 games per team. So the Hurricanes team is going to have these 10. The Typhoon will have these 10, and so on. So all of those teams are going to have their list of teams. This is just the matchups that it's going to recognize. And I'll say, all right, let's go ahead and create that schedule. This warning here is just saying that because of the different criteria that goes into it, it may take a few minutes for the schedule to produce itself. But as you just saw there, not too shabby. Up here, the first thing I see is that the blue team has 10 games. So this is just showing me that all of the teams were able to get all 10 of the games that I wanted to have scheduled for them. Now, as I'm looking at my schedule date range, I can see the games that have been put in here. So we have CC Test playing Team Name. We've got Blizzard playing AC Test. We've got the Blade playing Ladies Night. Lightning at Thunder, Smarties at Storm, Hurricane at Twix. So this is my Oh yeah, because they're Scotia 1, Scotia 2, etc. So these are being spread across the venues and the time slots. So as I go through here, this hasn't been committed as a schedule yet, but I might look at this and say I want to make a couple of changes. There might be something that I want to have a little bit differently. If I'm looking here and I see Blizzard is playing in the 8:30 time slot over here, let's see where they're playing next time. They're in the 8 o'clock time slot. So maybe I want to try to move them with someone else so that they have an earlier time slot. So let's see if I can do that. If I grab this and I drag it and I want to trade it with the Purple Monkey dishwasher slot, I'm going to see if it's going to let me do that. So when I drop in the right spot there, the swap has passed all conflict checking. So again, we go through conflict checking. It's not confirmed until I click confirm, but based on all the schedule constraints and settings, I don't have a schedule conflict by swapping these two games. So I'm going to confirm that. So now we've moved the Blizzard into that earlier time slot, and the Purple Monkey dishwasher team is playing at the later time slot. So keep in mind that you can do that and manipulate this all you need to. You can also scroll down and view the matchups that may not have happened. So if I look here, I can see that there is no matchup where Purple Monkey dishwasher plays at the Blade. So there might be a Blade versus dishwasher where the Purple Monkey dishwasher is home, but this particular matchup has not been scheduled. Same as Hurricane versus the Blade over here. We don't have a game where Hurricane is visiting the Blade. So if you want something like that, you can find yourself an empty time slot that you have available up here. I'm going to just keep scrolling to the end so I can see where some of those empty slots are. So if I find myself a slot that I want to put that in, so let's put Dairy Milk Destroyers into Ladies Night in here. I'm going to drop it in, and it's going to go through again that conflict checking. Sure, you can do this. Now, knowing that I just did that, as we scroll up, we're going to see that now we have a couple of teams that have 11 games. If I don't want that, then I would just go ahead and make sure that I get rid of a game for them, or I can add another game for all the other teams. So the matchups that are available, we either see that they happened or they didn't, and you can drag them in. You can also swap those games, and then once you're happy with it, you can publish the schedule. Something I often show as well is, had I abandoned this entire thing after having viewed those chosen matchups and seen that tentative schedule, when I come back in, it will recognize that I started a session and I can pick up where I left off. But now that I've committed the schedule, it's just part of the schedule. So this whole entire schedule just got created, and all of these games are now on the public facing schedule for these league teams. Now that we've got schedules in the system that have been added either through the generator or a schedule upload process, there's going to be times where you need to update games. You might need to add a game that wasn't originally on the schedule. You can do that one at a time. And just like the upload, you can do this from either the master menu, the league menu, or the specific team menu. The constraint becomes that it has to involve that league or that team the deeper you go into that layer of menu. I am a big fan of using the league or team menu to create games manually, but there is an option to do that from the master menu. Let's go ahead into our men's league. And I'm going to find add, edit, delete games. Every schedule that you have is going to have an option to add, edit, delete games. So make sure that you're selecting the appropriate schedule if you have more than one schedule. When I go to add, edit, delete games, it's going to show me the teams that are available in this division, and notice that TBA is at the bottom. So if I want to create a game, but I don't know who's playing, I can select TBA versus TBA or Earth versus TBA, whatever I need there. I'm going to select the venue. I'm going to select the date. I'm going to select the time. It's going to default to 7 p.m. on the current date. And then the allotted venue time is going to default to my schedule detail settings. If I don't know the actual game time yet, but I do have the venue and date, I would select that. That's probably a good time to use the details here as well to include what those details are. Why is it TBA? When do we expect an update? As you scroll down, you're going to see I have some things turned on here that override point values. Not super common to do that, but I'm also going to have options to send out an email regarding this game. So whether I was editing a game, adding a game, canceling a game, I can send out an email to the players, the parents, the coaching staff, the executives on my site as well, and I can create that game. You can also view all of the other games in the schedule. So if you want to search all games in the schedule, you can see that here, and then you can edit games. So I can just grab any of these games, edit those. These are the games that we uploaded from our file earlier today. So I can go ahead and make changes here. If we want it to be at a different venue, we can change that. We also have the option here of setting it as canceled or to be rescheduled. For those of you with outdoor sports, so baseball, soccer, softball, football, etc., when we recognize that it's an outdoor sport, there's also an option in this list called rainout, because we recognize that a lot of times outdoor sports are going to have to be postponed due to weather. So there is an option for rainout if your sport is outdoor. My sport in this case is hockey. That's not an outdoor sport, so it doesn't tend to get rained out. So I can make any of those changes, and again, email any relevant parties as I go ahead and make that change to the game. Adding practices is very, very similar. I'm going to actually go into a rep team menu instead of going to the league team menu. It's more common for you to go ahead and add practices for your association teams than it is for league teams. So you're still going to go to that scheduling section, and you're going to find that there is just an add, edit, delete practice option. This is very similar in the sense that I select the venue, the type, the date and time. Here I select a start time and an end time. So we'll go ahead and do that from 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. Do you want the details to be published? And you can also from here set up a recurring practice. You can do this from the master menu too. So if you're an association that you want to go ahead and set up all of your team's recurring practices, if you're not doing it through the upload, you can do it easily through this. So if we know that every Wednesday, well, no, it probably wouldn't be Wednesdays. Let's do Thursday nights. Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. These guys are going to have their practice at Lambeau Stadium. Why not? And it's going to repeat every week until the end of May. So I can go and do that all at once. And so when I go to create this practice, it's going to create all of the practices instead of just creating one that I have to create multiple times. So when I go and create that, it's going to do a quick little conflict check and make sure that what I've added is fine. And so here we go. Here is the series of practices that was just created. If one of these practices needs to be removed, let me go ahead and edit that. When I look, I can make changes, but I want to uncheck the recurring practice option from here so that the changes I make only apply to this one practice. Now that your schedules are in the system and you've got them all up to date, you're able to view those schedules on the public side of your website. And there's lots of different ways that people will choose to have their leagues and teams displayed on the site. Not everyone has both of them like I do. My association teams are listed here in my teams listing. So here's all my venues, or sorry, my association teams. I'll click on my new team over here, and we can see I landed directly on my team schedule. That's the default for my team landing page when I navigate there. And here are those schedules. This is showing me this month. I can move forward and just keep looking at that schedule until the end of time. I can also click to subscribe to the season schedule. And this allows you to, if you're a Google Calendar user like I am, you right click this option, copy that link address, and then use your calendar program's instructions on how to subscribe to a calendar. When you are subscribed, what's going to happen is that as things are added or change, you're automatically going to see that update on your personal calendar. Ideally, your organization is going to also provide you with email notifications of those changes. But something that I've learned recently that I am absolutely a big fan of is when you subscribe to that calendar, you're able to set it up on your own Google Calendar that you want an email if any of the items on that calendar have changed, which I think is just great. And that way you get your own notification regardless of whether or not the association has chosen to send out one of those emails. The games, or sorry, divisions and leagues that you run, very, very similar. I'm going to click my divisions and hockey and get into my Women's Hurricane League. Here we land on standings. When it comes to a league, generally people want to land on the standings page so they can see what are the standings looking like right now. But then you can click on that schedule. The schedule is going to be in a list view when you're looking at a league, but notice that I can drill down to my team and see it the same way as a regular team would. And a lot of folks are going to go ahead and just bookmark kind of this page or bookmark the standings page so they can navigate nice and easy there. So that's how we can see these. You can see the home games and away games, any practices as well, and you can subscribe to the season schedule for either the league or for just that one team that you happen to be interested in. So that is our webinar for today. So we took a look at the settings that we need to do within schedules to make sure that your season and your schedules are there, current, and as we noticed, have the appropriate date range. We looked at how to upload a schedule file, including the requirements within the file itself. Remember that it does have to be CSV, but you can start that with any sample file as long as it's started in a spreadsheet and you have all the appropriate columns. How to use a schedule generator, which you can do for any standing style schedule, which is perfect for regular season schedules or the round robin portion of a tournament schedule. And then we looked at how you add games and practices one at a time, or how you make those changes to your games and practices, and then how you go ahead and see those on the public side of the site. So thanks so much for being here today. And if you're watching later at home, thanks so much for spending the time. Again, you can always contact the Goalline support team at goallinesupport@stacksports.com, or go to goalline.ca, click support, and get access to a live chat and phone support. Have a great day.